this part first, and then I'll start visiting with my classroom students. Happy Monday, everybody. March 22nd, 2021. We will focus on reading and imagination, right? That's the key to understanding what you're reading. That's the key to answering questions about theme, is of course, you're imagining it as you read. And that's a habit that we're going to build all year long. I will use riddle skills and focus on details and connection. We are taking a test tomorrow, and it's all writing, which I think is really good because so many in this class are just really good writers. Like I always say, I'm not worried about spelling. I want to know what you think. And learning how to trust yourself, that's the most important thing. So details and connection as we read today are a big deal. And then for our close, well, what stood out to you about what we read? What did you notice? And we'll talk more about that in a minute. And for our work today, I guess let me reopen Schoology. And you will see the new folders for the new 9 weeks are yellow. Monday's work, reading annotation. And there's 2 reading passages. They're a few pages each. And we're gonna read them together. And once you're done reading, kind of like we did with the through the tunnel close reading, you're gonna look for things that stand out and make a notation about them. Like we've practiced before, you highlight, you click, and you write what you have to say. And we'll need like 2 per page, basically, to get you focused on things that you need to be focused on when we take the test tomorrow. So go ahead and get your own copy open, and I'm going to visit with people in the class, and then I'll come back and we'll go through the readings together. So bear with me for a little bit. Let me pause this. Alrighty, those of us on Zoom, thanks for your patience. So you should have your own copy open. We are going to read the whole thing together. And let's go ahead and get started. All right, English 3, Unit 6, reading summative passages. We're going to read the selection. Let me make this bigger. Okay, this is an excerpt from the novel Dry by Neil Shusterman about a teenager named Alyssa who is living in present-day California where the drought has escalated to catastrophic proportions. And we all know drought, right, here in Texas. But we're talking about there is literally no water, and I may have to kill you to take your water because I don't have any kind of, that's the kind of drought level they're talking about. Very different from what we're used to. Alyssa, her little brother Garrett, and their neighbor Kelton are out looking for their parents who have disappeared. The teens track Alyssa and Garrett's mom and dad to the beach, where they are attacked by a group of teens who are desperate for water. So in this novel, it's in the first person and it changes. So right now, it's the first person and Kelton. Kelton is the neighbor, the friend, that who's the one speaking here. Just keep that in mind. Reading passage 1. I didn't want to have to pull out my gun, but the second that creep got too close to Alyssa, it's like some protective instinct kicked in. Now my Ruger is pointed right at his head. I'm supposed to point it at his chest, but at this angle, all I have is his back, and a bullet in the back could go straight through him and into Alyssa. But he's taller. A headshot will miss Alyssa. The instant the other 2 creeps see my Ruger, they drop Garrett and bolt, but the tall blonde kid still grips Alyssa. I said let her go. My hand trembles. I reach up my other hand into a 2-handed grip, but it doesn't help. Now he turns to see the gun, and Alyssa uses the moment to break free, instantly distancing herself and going straight to Garrett to protect him. The creep just stands there, looking at me as if he doesn't care if I pull the trigger, as if he's already resigned himself to death. I stare him straight in those ice blue eyes and then focus back on my arm. Now my hands aren't just trembling, they're shaking violently. I try to stop them, but it's like my brain can't seem to send the signal that far down my arms, like I'm disconnected from my own body. And now I'm struck with a crippling wave of panic that starts in my chest and pulls like a lethal gravity, collapsing my lungs until I've imploded so deep within myself I can't breathe. I can barely gasp. He'll do it, Alyssa screams. The sound reverberates and echoes. You better run like your friends. No, he says. Just no. And then he takes a step towards me. Or does he? I can barely tell because now my vision is going spotty as my brain misfires, shutting down piston by piston. Do it, Kelton! Do it, Garrett yells. But I can't. With all the training, with everything I've been taught about self defense and the wielding of weapons, something inside me blows a critical fuse. I can't bring myself to pull that trigger, and the kid knows it. He lurches forward, knocking me back, and the gun flies out of my hands. I can't let him get it. He'll kill all of us. He's that crazy. I know he is. The weapon lands in the trash filled gutter. We both scramble for it. I don't know which one of us is more desperate to get it. And when I get to where I thought I saw it land, it's not there. Instead, there's a girl standing there, as if she appeared out of nowhere. A girl I've never seen before, and she's holding my gun, pointed directly at me. She cocks it, loading a bullet into the chamber with expert precision, and I realized that even if I had pulled that trigger, nothing would have happened because I never even took the safety off. She smiles, almost seductively, and it's in this moment I realize that the gun isn't pointed at me at all. She has it trained on the ice-eyed creep who's right behind me. She brushes me out of the way with a deranged sort of confidence and puts the muzzle of the gun to the kid's forehead. I look to Alyssa, who, just like me, is shocked by the appearance of this mysterious girl and terrified by what her intentions might be. I struggle to force my anxiety attack away. The kid winces as she presses the gun harder against his forehead, a lot more terrified of her than he was of me. He stammers excuses, anything to buy time. It's them, not me. They have the water. Why me? Why you? She says, oddly pensive. I guess I don't really like your face. Bet it was once pretty, though. Pretty beach boy. I got dumped by too many of those. Although I can't see why anyone would dump her, she's not just tough, she's stunning in a wild kind of way, dark and mysterious. But then maybe they dumped her because she's freaking psychotic. She blows a long strand of black hair away from her face, revealing inscrutable dark eyes that pierce in a very different way than the kid's blue ones. Then she holds her free hand out to Alyssa, keeping the gun against the kid's head. The keys, please, she says. And when Alyssa doesn't move, she adds, the keys, or I'll kill him. I start to add everything up. If this girl knows about the keys, she wasn't just walking by when this happened. It means she saw everything, that she was watching and waiting to make her move. But if she saw, then why does she think that Alyssa will save this kid? And suddenly I realize why. Because Alyssa will. This girl read that about Alyssa in just a few seconds of seeing her. Please, cries the kid. He'd probably wet himself if he had any water left to expel. Please, my mom and sister, they're counting on me to bring back water. If you kill me, you kill them too. Wow, that sucks, the girl says, and presses my gun harder against his head. Keys, please, she says again to Alyssa. Okay, says Alyssa, trying to placate her. No one has to die here. No, complains Garrett. Just let her shoot him. But Alyssa ignores him and puts the keys in the girl's hands. She immediately pulls the gun away from the blonde kid's forehead, plants a foot on his chest, and pushes him over backward. Who the hell is this girl? She acts gleefully impulsive, but in reality, I don't think there's anything impulsive about her. I think she's calculating and smart. As for the blue-eyed kid, he stays on the ground, curled up in fetal position, broken and sobbing, which is how I imagine he'll spend the rest of eternity. All right, that's it for reading passage 1. And boy, the action, right, grabs your attention from the start, right? He's pulling out a gun, and then the way he reacts, right? Be thinking about that. The description of the new girl, it's interesting because he doesn't come out and say, she looks like this or looks like that. He just gives you these little clues that help you picture her, which is really well done. All right, let's go to reading passage 2. Jackie, that's the name of the hot, wild woman from reading passage 1. So a little bit of time has passed. She's cut her arm, and the cut on her arm is infected. So she's getting sick and feeling weak. And we're about to read about her. It says Jackie cut her arm in a previous chapter, and the wound is now infected. After saving Alyssa, Garrett, and Kelton, she reluctantly agrees to drive them home in exchange for supplies and antibiotics. All right, Jackie. So this is Jackie's point of view now, right? First person Jackie. We eventually find the BMW parked in an abandoned back lot. It's silver, sleek, and looks incredibly expensive, which means there's a chance this car is loaded with water, just as the blonde kid said. The idea of it gets my adrenal glands pumping, but when I look inside, the car is a total mess. Mounds of useless junk, sheaves of paper, trash, DVDs that would probably never be played again. This can't be it. What kind of second-rate hoarder brings trash rather than supplies? I search under the seats, between the seats. Even the trunk is bursting with junk. It isn't until I pop open the glove box that I found salvation. Well, at least 16 ounces of it. I start to guzzle down the water with no intention of sharing, because I know these kids have water of their own. I have to force my lips from the bottle to breathe. I take a deep breath and look through some of the junk. Dozens of pictures of the guy who this car belonged to. A glossy family portrait. Each family member dressed in uninteresting matching turtlenecks. Hell, their photos might as well just come with the frames. But for some reason, the more I look through the portraits, the more it begins to affect me, which is weird and stupid because I never knew this guy. It's more the items that get me. The fact that these were the last things this man packed. These were the things he chose to keep before leaving his home, maybe forever. It's a desperate feeling I can understand and relate to. And with all of these emotions, the gravity of our situation comes crashing back to me. I feel woozy. It's the fever. I try to steel myself for the drive. This is no time for sentiment or sickness. It's time to rally. I take another swig from the water bottle and catch Alyssa staring at me. You should conserve, she says, like she's reciting something she heard on a public service announcement while watching cartoons with her idiot brother. I glare at her. Kelton sits shotgun, I declare, because at least when he's irritating, it's informational. The real reason, of course, is that whoever sits in the front with me will be my biggest threat. And right now, the dorky ginger who can't bring himself to fire a gun is the lowest risk. In fact, he seems hell-bent on being helpful. I'll navigate, he says. We may have to go off-road. Alyssa looks at me skeptically and then opens her big mouth again. Who put you in charge? I did, I tell her as I start up the car. If you don't like it, you can go back to your bikes and ride home. Alyssa eventually gets in the car, backing down as I knew she would, because at the end of the day, she needs me more than I need her, and I don't need her at all. The only reason she and her brother are in this car is because Kelton probably wouldn't come without them. And Kelton's the man with the antibiotics, that is, unless he's lying. But I don't think he is. He's honest to a fault, the kind of honesty that could get him killed. As for Alyssa, I trust her about as much as she trusts me, which is fine, as long as I stay in control. Survival means not leaving any factor up to anyone else's jurisdiction. But now, catching a better look at Alyssa in the rearview mirror, I sense something I hadn't picked up on before. When I first met her, I figured that she was all bark, no bite. But now, in the car, as sunlight refracts across her face, illuminating what I could not see before, I realize that her eyes aren't as dull and vapid as I had first thought. She's shrewd, which means she could be a problem. All right, so we have finished that. Lots of great details. some good figurative language and connotations with them. And of course, this whole scene, right, of trying to hunt for water. She's getting sick, but she's not going to back down to anybody, right? So you could focus on a lot of things here, from the plot to the figurative language to the characters' actions and reactions. So once again, on each page, you want to make 2 annotations. And if you're here in person, of course, you're just going to write out to the side. I do not mean write a summary, right? You do not have to explain everything that's going on. Man, I would have pulled that trigger is a good annotation. Oh, I can picture that girl here. Just little things that stand out, about the plot, about the characterization, about the figurative language. That's what you're putting. They can be plenty small. Just be sure you do 2 per page. And those of us on the computer, same thing, using the comment feature. Just highlight text, add comment, and do that. And then what are your thoughts about what we read? You can go into today's work, Monday's work, and in the discussion, what stood out to you about the reading passages for dry? Add that to it. So that's what's going on for today. Remember, tomorrow we are taking this test. It is short answers, and we're going to write, and it's going to be